Hello and welcome to the Disabled People's channel. My name is Steve Huxford and I'm having a discussion today on fibromyalgia with Mark Farmer. I'm in London and I'll let Mark introduce himself to start off with.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark. I'm from Leicestershire, where I chair a fibromyalgia group. And yeah, I'm just here today, obviously, to help enlighten people a bit more about the condition, some of the treatment options and the impact that it has on your life.
And I also am involved with a fibromyalgia group down here in London. And yeah, hopefully through this we can give people more awareness of the difference that fibromyalgia makes to us and also to those around us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think many people obviously know about the condition, do they? And I think we've got to get the word out there, and that's part of what we're doing today.
Yeah, there have been a couple of more high-profile figures recently, but
Yeah,
Lady Gaga is obviously the big one.
and Kirsty Young is the newsreader as well.
Kirsty Young, yes, one of the British newsreaders, presenting Desert Island Discs for many years, wasn't she?
Yes, yeah,
Recently had to step down from it. Did you want
yeah.
to give us a kind of a brief intro into what fibromyalgia is? Yeah, well,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so fibromyalgia primarily for most people is a pain condition um, affecting all parts of the body. It's got many things that come with it. So people obviously also mention memory loss as being another issue, and we call that fibro fog. And that fibro fog is partly because of what's going on in our neurological symptoms. I'll get the word out. And the impact that it has on the nervous system. So we have an overactive nervous system that feels pain more often. Like I said, it causes us to lose our memory. We also have fatigue. We can become overweight. We have mental health problems, bowel problems, problems in our mouth. And I think when we check the research, I think this is right, that there's possibly about 150 plus different conditions that people can have with it. So yeah, kind of like the issue though is that there are so many symptoms that it's really hard for people to get a diagnosis of what they've actually got. What was your own experience of getting a diagnosis for the condition?
it was about 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was 4 years ago. I was at a point where I was really struggling just to get out of bed, and I was in a lot of pain, and it took me so long just to admit to myself that I was in pain and quite how bad it was, because I'd taken painkillers for kind of some leg pains, some back pains, that kind of thing. And eventually I just went to the doctor, who asked me lots of questions, prodded me about a bit, tested different things, and then said, I think you've got fibromyalgia. Look it up over the week, come back to me next week and we'll take it from there. So I went away, found out that one of the medications that I had been taking for my mental health, in the few months that I hadn't been taking it, the symptoms of fibromyalgia had been coming up and become a lot more prevalent. So I went back on that medication. It made quite a big difference. And
Yeah,
I then got referred on to a rheumatologist who, they tend to be the ones who do the diagnosis for most people.
yeah,
And the frustrating thing is that you go to a rheumatologist, they run through a lot of things, they rule out pretty much everything that's rheumatoid or to do with them, and then say, yes, it's fibromyalgia, that's nothing to do with us, go back to your GP and then take it from there.
yeah,
And then I got referred on to, in London we've got a very good fibromyalgia clinic, which will run through a few different specialists to make sure that we get the same treatment across London. And then I got referred on to a pain clinic from there. What about you? What was your experience?
Well, for me, I was first diagnosed with arthritis when I turned 30. And then from there, I was getting more and more problems. So, like you said about mental health being poor, I was having problems sleeping, so I had quite poor sort of quality sleep. Loads of problems with concentration. Um, so, do you know what? I thought to myself, I've got to get this looked into more. So, I approached a GP who referred me to, like you say, rheumatology. And rheumatology just looks at the symptoms that I had, and then put it together to form the opinion it was fibromyalgia. The scary thing now, though, for me was looking back and looking at my childhood. And I used to have really bad leg pain, which they kept saying was just growing pains. But I actually think for me that was the start of my fibromyalgia. And I can track it back to quite a traumatic event, in my life, in my childhood, because that's one of the other facts about fibromyalgia that obviously don't know really what causes it, but it's often triggered by people having a mental health or physical trauma. So that's what the research is showing in that regard. Now, looking at kind of like some other statistics, they say between 3 and 5% of the population of the country has fibromyalgia. So that's roughly 2 to 3 million people with the condition. It's a huge number of people. And I would doubt that I would say probably the majority of those people don't know that they've actually got it. Has that been your experience of talking to other fibromyalgia sufferers, that it's taken quite a long time and it's been
Yes,
quite difficult to diagnosis?
definitely. And for me, when I got diagnosed and started learning a bit about it, I was able to look back and then realised that it was about 10 years ago I had a significant back injury at work. I was off work for
Yeah,
4 months, and then I came back into work and I wasn't able to do a standing job, which I used to do. I used to be quite active in security, always on my feet, running around doing all sorts of things. And then I had to swap to a desk job, and the back injury never quite sorted itself out. And I think that was probably one of the big triggers for me. So it took 6 years of just being in different pains and just kind of thinking, it's just because I'm busy or I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and never
yeah,
quite acknowledging how serious it was for me.
yeah,
And I've definitely found out with a lot of other people that it's not always the case, but there's usually some kind of trauma, whether it's as you say, kind of physical or anything else, and that will just kind of it triggers things. But over the years, I've had several different breaks or injuries, and I think that's made it worse each time.
yeah, yeah. So it's just been more and more triggers for you that are just,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely,
in
yeah.
the painfulls and
And
things. Yeah,
my friends have kind of seen me over the years get, quite a bit worse.
yeah,
But that's kind of the nature of it, is that for a lot of people it does get worse, but not everybody. And
yeah.
I think, some people it will stay the same. A small kind of minority will kind of improve for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, but it's so hard to express to friends and family what you
Yes,
go through, isn't it? And
yeah,
I think particularly when you're having a really bad day of pain. Now, I don't personally go, ouch, ouch, I'm in pain today. I just like keep it internalized, because I don't want to become like a whinger that someone's banging on about it all the time. But perhaps I should be more open about it, because that might help me deal with some of that pain um,
yeah,
a bit more closely. But yeah, when the pain is so bad, it's about, what can you do to calm it down? So taking more and more medication, but obviously trying to just switch off from the world for a little bit,
yeah.
to try and cover that back.
You,
Um,
you did mention friends and family just now, and I think that's a good point just to bring in that we are live at the moment and we've got a video stream going. We've got some questions that can come in. So if anybody is watching who wants to throw up a question, then throw in the questions. We'll try and bring them in and see where we can go from there.
yeah, We'd love to hear the questions, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I was just thinking about just a few moments ago when we were talking about statistics. I also think the other interesting one is that it affects women far more than it does men. So between 80 and
Yes.
90% of people with fibromyalgia are women. And they've got no idea at all why that's the case. It could be because of hormonal changes. That's one of the theories that they've got out there. It could partly be more about women are being a bit more open and going to see their doctor more and getting a diagnosis about it. But I just think that leaves us in a really difficult position as men, in a way, that we're in that minority.
Mm.
And in a way, we're more alone, aren't we? In our
Yeah.
experiences.
I found that Facebook groups have been quite useful for me, and I'm in a few different ones. And yes, there are some man-only ones, which
Yeah.
are very helpful for that. But personally, I find being in mixed groups helpful as well, so you get a wider
Yeah.
understanding from all around. And you've kind of referred to the statistics here in the UK of, yeah, possibly 3 or 4 million, something like that. But it is prevalent all around the world. It doesn't seem to kind of make any difference where you're from or anything like that.
No. No.
The only difference really does seem to be the male-female ratio, and hopefully one day they'll find out the answers. But that is the
Yeah.
difficulty, I suppose, is that there's a lot of unknowns with this. So the cause is they kind of think it's to do with the trauma or some kind of trigger, but there's so many different factors that could be involved and different theories that keep coming up. What's the kind of thinking from what you've heard?
Yeah. I mean, my group, Fibromyalgia Friends Together, did a bit of research into fibromyalgia with the help of our local Health Watch. We actually got a national response to it, so we got about 1,000 people sort of writing in about it. And it was interesting about what people wanted around dealing with it, what they wanted around treatments around it. And kind of like the key message we found, you know, it did reflect actually that there are far more women than men responding to the survey. And in my group, there's one person or two people that are men out of about 20. So we are in that minority. We saw that in the survey results. But what people really, really wanted was a dedicated clinic for fibromyalgia. And our research shows that there's one in London. There is already a clinic in London that deals with fibromyalgia. That's one or two clinics, because I think there's another one at Bath that deals with fibromyalgia in the whole country. And that can't be right, because what's happening now, like we said, those 150 different symptoms, we're just passed from one consultant to the other. It might be pain consultant this week, the rheumatology consultant 3 weeks later, the mental health 10 weeks later. We're just sent around all these different specialities with no one gives any real answers.
Yeah.
I we deserve those answers, and we deserve to have a fibromyalgia clinic
Yeah.
all across the country. Yeah.
We've got a question coming in, and what support would be available to somebody with the condition?
Well, look, that's a really difficult question to answer. I'd begin by saying it depends where you live in the country. So if you're near a rheumatology clinic or a pain consultant clinic, or even if you've got a really supportive GP, a really supportive GP will be able to open all sorts of doors for you.
Yeah.
Because they can treat it in primary care. You don't have to see a consultant. I would say the other thing is joining a group is number one, really. Sharing your experiences with other people, because that will help with the mental health side of it. It will give you reassurance, and it will make you think about what treatments you may, want to try out, because we've not, in a minute, we'll probably speak a bit more about treatments.
Yeah.
But what do you think in response to this question?
yeah, I think definitely having people around and some good friends, good family, hopefully, being able to bring in people who are prepared to accept that we will have low energy at points. We can't always do as much as we want to, and just yeah. I found various different groups online particularly helpful, but also a physical group. There's a load around the UK. I know there's some dotted around some of the other countries as well, and that just gives the opportunity to go and meet other people with the same condition.
Definitely.
But yes, I've learnt so much more from other people with it than I have from the brief appointments that we've had from different specialists.
Yeah, yeah. So don't you think as well there's an issue around here around sort of using the internet as well?
Yes.
So like we've said earlier about using Facebook groups, but also websites that are full of information. There's many of them these days.
Yeah.
Where you can look about what support's available. You can ask for support of people with the condition. But what I would say is don't just think about your needs if you've got it. Think about your carers' needs or the primary people in your life, because it will have an impact upon them too. And we often forget the sacrifice that carers make in helping people with fibro. So that's just another thing I'd urge that in that sort of answer to that question is make sure that both you and your carers both get support in the way that we've just outlined. I mean, we have carers come along to our Fibromyalgia Friends Together group. What about yours? Do you get carers attending at all?
Yes, it tends to be kind of family, but for some of those people, then yes, they are the primary carers as well. So
Yes.
I don't have a carer myself, but I've got
No.
friends and family that I've kind of had to rely on at different points, and yeah, it does make it quite difficult.
Second question from Diane.
Yeah, got another question.
Mention Diane.
We've got a question in from Dion, asking what benefits would be entitled to. That varies, I suppose, across the world, but
Yes.
yeah.
We
So
can't give you a global perspective on this one. Maybe only UK wide.
yeah,
I just think in the UK, so it just depends on your age, is one of the things. So if you're below 65, you have the right to claim personal independence payments, which is quite a difficult process to go through. I can say that from my own personal experience. But it's such an important benefit if you can get hold of it, because it's not means tested. So you can still work with that benefit. You can still volunteer. You can still do whatever you like. But that's worth quite a bit of money if you get the high rates of it. And officially, it's to help you deal with the additional costs that we face as sufferers of a disability. The other one is for over 65s, which is the attendance allowance, again, which is actually quite a lot easier to claim than PIP. There's less evidence required, but it doesn't pay out as much as PIP. But again, that's non-means tested, so anybody can claim that. And then finally, I don't know what your experiences are of claiming ESA.
yes. So I'm on ESA, which is Employment Support Allowance, which yeah, it's one of the kind of it was a newer benefit until universal credit came along, which has encompassed a lot of the benefits.
Yeah.
But yes, I've managed to kind of get the support I need through the benefit system. As you mentioned, the personal independent payment can be difficult for a lot of people, and it does depend a lot on the symptoms and things like that. And I know that our friends over in America also have difficulty with the disability support. I guess in different places, then the budgets are tight, and they're trying to make sure that the people who need it most get the support. But because this is one of the invisible illnesses, for most people it's not obvious. yeah, I sit in here, there's probably nothing obvious that shows that we're not very well. But when I'm walking around, I use 2 sticks, just because I haven't got the strength or the balance to get around very well. Some people will even need mobility scooters, electric wheelchairs. But
Yeah.
other people would, you wouldn't notice it. They can walk around and no obvious illness.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it so massively varies. Most of the time I'm in a wheelchair. So, yeah, that's how it's affected me. I just think one last point on benefits actually is just where to get advice from in the UK. So certainly go to your Citizens Advice Bureau to get support, because that's one of the roles that they play. But there are lots of online benefit calculators. So there's the government one at www.gov.uk, benefits calculator that can help you calculate these things, because there's also things like reduction in council tax benefit, and for carers there's carers allowance, which unfortunately is means tested, unlike the benefits that we can get. Some of the benefits, of course, ESA is means tested. If you've not been put in one of the groups before, you know, it depends on how long you finished work. It's slightly a bit more complicated, ESA, the kind of the rules around it. But yeah, so yeah, there were just some thoughts on benefits there. Shall we move on to treatments?
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We've kind of very briefly kind of touched on medications being there. What's the best thing for people to use?
Yeah, so with us not having medical knowledge, we can only sort of go on our own personal experience, I guess. But yeah, like you say, there's a range of medications out there that vary in their effectiveness for people. So we were talking about anti-epileptic drugs called pregabalin or gabapentin. And the idea behind them is to reduce muscle spasms, but it's also to calm down the nervous system. So they're just 2 drugs.
Yes, I find pregabalin really helpful.
Do you? Yes.
But I know that some people find it really difficult. And that seems to be the issue with a lot of the different options. For some people, they're very effective. Some people get strong side effects, and others get no benefit and just feel a lot of problems from them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking another one called amitriptyline, which was used as an antidepressant, but it's now more used for relieving pain in the nerves. And for a lot of people, that's a really effective drug, because it also helps them sleep at night. That's another one of its benefits. The downside of it is that it makes some people too sleepy and they feel like zombies the next day. So, like we're saying, it just depends on who you are, your DNA makeup, what does and what doesn't work for you. Just trying to think of some other ones. So there are medications that can calm down your bladder if you've got an overactive bladder because of fibromyalgia. Unfortunately, there's not one for fibrofog. There's nothing out there that improves having that fibrofog, that memory loss. And I don't know about you, but that's kind of like one of the biggest problems I face, is having a lot of short-term memory loss.
Yes, and I suppose the sleep is one of the big factors with things like that.
Yes.
Because the exhaustion, the fatigue can make a lot of the symptoms worse, and so when there is something like a sedative effect that you mentioned for amitriptyline, for example, then that can help to get a slightly better sleep, because it's the restorative phase of sleep that we really struggle with. And it's so easy to spend a long time in bed but not get a refreshing sleep.
I mean, because don't you think as well, with all these medications, they all come with different side effects, don't they? Some of those side effects for people is that sleepiness, but it's also, making sure that you've got a quality of life as well, that you're not in that kind of like zombified state because of the lack of sleep and leading to the memory loss. On a kind of like sad note, I guess we ought to point out that there is no cure for fibromyalgia.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just managing your conditions.
And I'm sure that you've seen a lot of different articles or supposed wonder treatments that will cure it or things like that. And in particular, there's a lot of the supplements and minerals and things that get branded around that are these wonder drugs, and while they might help some people, it's just not necessarily going to help.
No, they're not that bullet that will take everything away. I just think as well with some other medication. Well, let's talk about outside medications, but still treatments. So obviously, it's not a legal drug, but cannabis works for some people.
Yes, that's I suppose the big one in discussion at the moment, isn't it? Because some countries or states and medical marijuana's coming along as a kind of a big discussion, and in the UK there has been almost kind of a legalization for some of the medical marijuana, but it's incredibly limited at the moment, isn't it? So while some people do say that there's a lot of relief from the pain, then at least from our government's point of view, then they treat that as anecdotal evidence rather than scientific evidence.
But perhaps they should let us make the choice about what we put into our own bodies rather than it sort of being directed by them. So we can weigh the pros and cons on a personal level rather than being banished from something that might have an impact for some people. We've got to be responsible for our own health, haven't we? And I think that applies to what treatments that we use. I mean, of course, there's other medications like CBD oil. Sorry, I shouldn't call it medication because it's not legally. It's a food supplement in the UK. And again, that's had kind of like the kind of psychological impact element of it taken out. So the high, and kind of like what they class as the good stuff left behind.
So for people who don't know, then CBD is it tends to come from hemp, but it's almost cannabis, but without the THC, which is the psychoactive bit, which is illegal in a lot of countries. So yes, it's legal, but it's technically a food supplement.
Yes.
But
so can't claim to any benefit at all. It's just like you say, you use the word hearsay. That's really what they're using.
So a lot of people do get relief from it, but at the moment there's no evidence scientifically to kind of really say this does make a difference. But
no. I'm just trying to think of other stuff. So I think for me, it's about reducing your stress levels if you can, because I think that makes it worse. So getting massage or going for mindfulness classes or getting away on holiday, all of those sorts of things will help reduce fatigue and pain and the lack of concentration. They'll help with it, not get rid of it, but they will help.
Yes, I suppose for most people they will notice that they're stressed and their shoulders tense up, the neck tenses up and things like that, but it's more kind of almost traumatic in a way for us when that happens, because that really increases the pain. And so any way of reducing that stress level and helping to slow the mind and calm down. So I also have massages and find them helpful. And mindfulness has been really good for me. Anxiety has always been something that I've struggled with. So just being able to really calm down and slow my thoughts down. And even being able to sit here and talk to you, that would have just been completely unthought of. Not even a couple of years ago.
Wow. Uh, So you've come on a long way. Yeah.
Yes, definitely, yeah. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it is a lot to do with kind of helping me to cope with it really, and acceptance. I did a long spell of counselling to really kind of help to just come to terms with it. The fact that I
Yeah.
could no longer do the active life and that I had before, and just to really accept where I am now and what I can do.
It's like a grieving process, isn't
Definitely,
it?
yes.
It's
And that
acknowledging that you could be that person again, but you're a new person,
yes,
and you can still have positive things in your life that will happen. Yeah. I was trying to think about before we spoke online. We spoke about the the pacing theory,
yes,
which
yeah,
is what you're saying, because the pacing theory is all about making sure that if you expend energy on something, that you don't do too much in one day. So you have to kind of like work out how much energy you've got for the key tasks that you need to do. And so, do you remember someone telling us in what they called the spoon theory?
yes,
So, yeah, where she counted out 12 spoons, and each spoon represented energy and a job that she'd undertake. And as each spoon was taken away, it therefore meant that everybody around her knew what she had left to do something, or if nothing at all, that's when she needed to stop and rest. So this is the lady that came out with the theory. That's how she sort of created this spoon theory to help with pacing, because it's a visual way of showing people what energy you've got. Because obviously
yeah.
people can't tell by looking at you, or they can't always tell by asking you. So it's a nice visual representation of that. Is that something you've ever used, pacing?
Yes, definitely. Pacing for me is crucial. You mentioned the spoon theory, which is one that applies to a lot of people for all sorts of different conditions. And so I think that might be something that's worth us putting up online later, just a link to that on the Disabled
Yeah.
People's channel. But yes, I know that by coming here today, doing this couple of hours of just interacting with you, and it requires mental concentration, a lot of effort in terms of that, which for a lot of people doesn't seem to be too much, but I know that it will kind of take it out of me, and I will need to spend the rest of the day resting, and it might even affect me tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
And I only have to, I can only pace in a couple of things through the week, and then just make sure I get the rest in, but not be too sedentary, I suppose maybe the word is, where so if I need to kind of get up and move a little bit, but not too much,
Yeah.
just to kind of keep the body slightly active. I think one of the easy things to do is to completely stop, in which case the body will seize up and not work so well. So it's just trying to find that balance between doing enough but not too much. And
Definitely. Yeah.
and another suggestion that I've heard is kind of like having a phone battery at 10%,
Yeah.
as will only charge to maybe that 10%, and then we've got to try and survive the whole day, and try and kind of balance on that, and so we have a lot less energy to use. Obviously that amount will vary depending on the people, but there's different ideas like that. So just as we're coming towards the end, one more question that we've got. Let's go with have people been ignoring your condition in society? You mentioned earlier that people might not know about it. Do you think it's ignoring, or just the awareness, or a bit of both?
I don't think they're ignoring it. I think, like you're suggesting there, they sort of don't just know about it. I don't think it's got any like kind of international or national profile. I know that we have our Fibromyalgia Awareness Weeks and Fibromyalgia International Days, but the reality is we're not really getting into the mainstream media about what it is. And that's partly because we're crowded out by the conditions. You know, cancer and heart get all the attention, and other conditions sort of get left behind and not mentioned. And it also means that society doesn't put enough money into research. So look, we know most conditions, why they're caused, but we don't know for sure what causes fibromyalgia, and therefore we have no idea about how to switch it off or to make it better. So that's a huge problem there with it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that, and also just because there's so many conditions that are very similar, there's a lot of overlap with the symptoms, so it can be hard to diagnose, which makes it harder to explain what it is. And yeah, so I think it's more just that people, even if they're aware it exists, it's just kind of how it impacts different people. And I suppose the best way of, if you know somebody with it, ask them how it affects them and the difference. And that's one of the things that I found through just being connected with the Disabled People's Channel, is that I'm speaking to people with other conditions who have similar experiences in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I just think as well there's a duty upon all of us to raise the profile of fibromyalgia. There are lots of great online resources that people can use to promote the message about what fibromyalgia is, what we're up to in terms of our fundraising activity, the treatments, the kind of pros and cons. There's a vast amount of information out there that we all collectively need to get across to our family, friends, patient, carers, the whole caboodle.
Yeah, okay. We've just about run out of time, so have you got any final things you want to add to that, or you think we've covered most of it for now?
I just want to sort of plug my group, because we are trying to help people, not just in our local area of Leicestershire, but across the whole country. So we've developed a website at www.fibro.org.uk, where people can find out loads of information about fibromyalgia. I also run my own helpline for it, which, people are more than welcome to call me anytime. And you'll find those contact details on that website. But just finally to say, please remember, people, you are not alone. There are many, many of us out there that have got the condition, who've lived with it for a number of years, have gone through the different treatments. We're there to back you up if you need us to. And you can find us on Facebook groups, you can find us on websites, you can find us on chats like this one. But thank you for the questions. They've been quite challenging questions. And hopefully we've given you the informative answers.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark Farmer, up in Leicestershire, in the middle of, somewhere up in the middle of the United Kingdom. Thank you very much. I'm Steve Huxford. Thank you for the questions. We'll put some more information up on the Disabled People's Channel. Hopefully we'll be back with you soon for another discussion around something else. So thank you very much, and see you soon.